I hope you hate this video. I just got back from watching Annihilation, so I just wanted to talk about it a little. If you don't know what it is, it's in theaters right now with starring Natalie Portman, Jennifer Jason Leigh, and Oscar Isaac, and directed by the guy, I don't remember his name off the top of my head, the guy who directed Deus Ex Machina, or is it just Ex Machina? One movie also starring Oscar Isaac about AI. I think it's called Deus Ex Machina anyway. I didn't watch it. Um, hmm. Where should I start? What should I talk about? Let's start with the acting. Natalie Portman was a pretty strong lead, I felt. Her performance was incredible. Jennifer Jason Leigh was awesome. I love the roles that she's been doing lately. I really loved her in Good Time earlier this year. I watched that. Actually, I can't remember exactly when I watched that. Anyway, I saw it in theaters, so. Was that around Christmas time? Anyway. And every other actor's performance was excellent. So there was, across the board, just pretty great acting. Not exactly like Klaus Kinski level, but pretty good overall, I'd say. I only saw the ending. How long a clip did I watch? I saw the very ending of Deus Ex Machina, and I didn't watch the whole movie or anything, but I can't remember why. For some reason, I watched the ending and hated it. I hated the acting and I hated the dialogue, and because it was made by the same director, I was expecting to hate it, and I've hated every single thing I've seen Oscar Isaac in before. And so I thought I was going to dread that. I was hoping he just had a smaller role or something. But actually, he surprised me. He really surprised me. His performance was really good. Best performance I've seen from him so far. And so I have no idea what happened. How did he... Well, anyway. Great movie overall. Excellent movie. A lot of the dialogue was very cerebral, characters really carefully studying each other, examining each other, trying to discern whether or not the other person's telling the truth, whether or not the other person's on their side. Why are they asking these questions? I don't know if I've really seen this before in a movie, but I find that in my daily life this happens a lot, where you ask somebody a question and they answer you and their answer makes no sense. It's so disconnected from the question. It's like they actually answered a completely different question, which makes me stop and think, like, what question do they think I asked? as you think about it, you just kind of start to realize that, well, a lot of the time, I mean, sometimes, yeah, people often completely misunderstand your question, don't know how to answer it, and end up just talking about the topic or something, or, you know. But all the characters were much smarter than that, so they were all answer. And I noticed this with intelligent people. They do answer the question. It's just, it's really hard to know what their insight is into why they answered it that way. But, you know, there's always a lot going on beneath the surface, and so I found the movie really was doing that almost constantly. It was really interesting. Oh yeah, there was one thing this is going to be a bit of a spoiler. There was one thing that I thought was really stupid. One thing that was really bad in the movie. Only one thing. Only one flaw in the whole movie. And that was the way that they walk or travel with their guard down. And I would expect that from the scientist. I don't the black girl. I don't remember what kind of scientist she was. A physicist or something like that. Anyway, you know, she's just a scientist. I wouldn't expect her to have any like military training or any sense combat awareness. You know what I mean? But Natalie Portman's character, come on, she was hardcore. Like she knew how to shoot properly. She knew how to. But even after they get attacked by monsters, they're like traveling around so casually, so unguarded. And I just thought that was really weird. I don't think they would have done that. I think they would have had their guards up. You know, at least Natalie Portman's character, and probably Jennifer Jason Leigh's character, because, you know, she was highly intelligent. I think that she would have enough awareness of her surroundings to do that. So I did think that was very odd. But it wasn't something that diminished the enjoyment of the film for me or anything like that. But yeah. So let's see. There was a decent amount of action. It was a pretty exciting movie, very thrilling, and it wasn't. It had I guess it had a little bit of horror elements, but not a lot. And I can't really comment on the directing too much, other than it definitely seemed like there was a meticulous amount of detail put into the film. So that's usually a good sign of directing, a director who pays a lot of attention to detail. And the art, their set design, man, that must have taken them a massive amount of time to create some of those things. Really, really fantastic. And the whole concept behind it was really interesting, which is not really the credit of the filmmakers, because it's based on a book, so, you know, that goes to the source material. But it did, I've heard that it did, I haven't read the book, I don't know anything about the book, but I've heard that it diverged a lot from the book. I've heard that the book has not as much action, and, you know, not so many monsters, and a lot more just the psychological horror of it, or the thrill, or whatever. But, man, it was a really interesting movie. You know, I find that what a lot of movies do is they do one or the other. You know, they focus on just quality filmmaking technique, or pure entertainment. You know, it's one or the other. You know, it's Michael Bay, or it's Stanley Kubrick. Well, actually, that's not a really good example, because Stanley Kubrick kind of bridges the gap. Well, okay, look at 2001: Space Odyssey, because that's a movie that's often cited in comparison, because it has some similar themes and atmosphere, but very different pacing, very different. There's no action in 2001: A Space Odyssey, right? So this movie was really like a combination of the two. It was like what I wanted Alien Covenant to be when I saw the trailer for that. You know what I mean? Let's see, what else do I want to say about this movie? This can be something to continue with the spoilers. And just go ahead and talk about the ending and everything. So, if you haven't seen it, you probably should have already stopped watching this. But if you want spoilers, what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, considering the psychology. Jason Leigh's character is a psychologist, and a very good one too. There's this line, pretty much the theme of the movie, the theme of Annihilation. It's a theme of self-destruction. In the beginning, Natalie Portman's character, who is a biologist, is studying cells and sees how all life replicates from, seeing how life replicates from one cell. One single cell multiplies and multiplies and multiplies exponentially. I think I'm using the word exponentially correctly. One cell becomes 2, 2 become 4, 4 become 8, 8 becomes 16, 16 become 32, etc. And that's the pattern for life. Man, where was I going with that? And then Jennifer Jason. Yeah, and then the characters are always like cross-examining each other. And then what they really get at is this human nature of self-destruction, and how we smoke, or we drink, or we do things that result in our deaths, but not in a suicidal sense, but in a self-destructive sense. And in that, oh yeah, right, because about the cells, the one cell that, and it keeps multiplying, that first cell, it's still always there, and it doesn't actually deteriorate or diminish. It just keeps expanding and expanding. And there was this idea of immortality. I don't know, there's some things they didn't touch on, which makes sense, because I would just not even expect that person, despite how highly intelligent they are, to ask that question. But he talks about how billions of years ago, all life came from one cell. Okay, where did that cell come from? That's not really an answer, right? Not for the origin of life, anyway. But regardless, it's still pretty interesting. Pretty interesting theory, and I think it definitely has some truth to it. But concerning the self-destructive nature, that I found really interesting. They really get at like people's problems and life and death. And what I noticed is that everything that happens to the characters, none of it is a result of coincidence, but everything happens for a reason. They go there and they don't just randomly die. Very particular things happen to them. Their end. Like, for example, Natalie Portman asked, like, why does she think that only she came back? And she looks at it and she thinks, and then she says, something to the effect of, I don't think the others wanted to come back. I mean, the effects on their body, on their cells, that this phenomena has, really demonstrate insight into who they are as people. Not just like their motivation for going affects what happens to them. I think there's a lot of things that kind of went unsaid. But anyway. Overall, oh yeah, I did want to talk about the comparison with Stalker and Solaris. And if you have only seen the George Clooney Solaris, then I feel sorry for you. Actually, I feel sorry for you if you have seen the George Clooney Solaris at all. Because you can never unwatch it. And you should have watched the original. Well, Solaris has this kind of like that same kind of psychological effect where this supernatural phenomena has insight into who you are as a person and replicates stuff. And then Stalker has this kind of quest for deep desire and fulfillment. When he gets to the end and he's... actually, maybe I won't spoil that in case you haven't seen that, so... Yeah, well... Anyway, I'll just talk about the ending, I guess. I loved the ending. Very Stalker-esque ending. And, oh man, I loved it. Like, when Jennifer Jason Leigh's character she says, what did I say to you when we first met? Or something like that. Or did I say to you before, or something? And she says, then she says, I wanted to something like, I came here to see what was in the lighthouse, and that time has passed. And then she and then she talks about like her, I don't know, theory or whatever of annihilation, and then she just like fire starts shooting out of her mouth, and she just bursts into flames. was pretty awesome. Like, all of her cells just turned into fire. And she just eradicated, and it was just pure annihilation. And then Natalie Portman's character, she basically gets replicated, and then there's another her, just like, and she fights with this replicant. It's really interesting. Because it mirrors her actions as if it's learning how to behave like a human or something by studying her. And then, but it's intimidating and it's frightening, and so she attacks it out of fear, and it just like pretty much demolishes her, but then she outsmarts it. Man, that was so interesting. I might even go see. I think I might even go see it again. I really liked it. All right. Well, that's all I have to say for now. So I hope you enjoyed this. Obviously, the video quality of this video is really bad, but I don't really care. I'm just focused on the content, really. And I know that I make some long pauses. That's kind of awkward, collecting my thoughts, and I tend to lose my train of thought frequently, but, you know, I'd rather just film the whole video in one shot without editing it, without rehearsing, without planning anything, and just talk and see what happens. And if some people don't like that, they can really just, like, go away and not watch it. I mean, you can feel free to comment and criticize me all you want, but I cannot stand people who pass moral judgment. It's not immoral to make something that isn't of high quality, okay? So those people can go to hell for all I care. Well, actually, I don't want them to go to hell. That's a bit much, but yeah, they're probably going there anyway.